We have a great moderator tonight. Those of you that may know Gerry Purdy, he's pretty well known. He is a friend of the Technology Forum. He's been here before and spoken before. He runs a blog. He's a well-known analyst and writes a newsletter, does all kinds of things like that. So he knows mobile really, really well. And he is going to be our moderator tonight and Tom could take us through with all the four panelists. So Gerry, without any further delay, I wanted to get you up here. Let you take over. Thank you, Gerry. Thanks for being here tonight.
More seats up front for those standing in back. It's really great to be back with Wireless Technology Forum. I remember a few years ago when we had a session. I know a lot of you remember we had one in particular called Wireless Data, Where's the Money? And it was around the time where the topic of the evening was to discuss is wireless data ever going to be as successful from a business standpoint? Because everything was cellular voice. And now we are 3 or 4 years later, and the tide's turned. It's almost the other way around, right? It's now all the focus is on wireless data. And why has that happened, and why are we doing the program here tonight? We're seeing, because of the advances of the technology, underlying technology, primarily around the codename LTE, long-term evolution, that it's becoming pervasive on most of the operators. T-Mobile says they're even going to join LTE as well. And we're finding that it is causing a paradigm shift because the bandwidth operates almost like having a cable connection in your smartphone. And what that means is that all these consumer apps that we can do these very optimization things, and we don't have much bandwidth, and we can do an example of this or a snippet of what's on the web. In fact, you can deliver really rich experiences now through mobile, either tablet or smartphone. And I've seen a number of business plans, having interacted with a lot of venture capitalists and have been one for 5 years in Silicon Valley, that the plans that you often see now are coming forward with mobile being the primary thrust of the company. So what started 5 years ago is we're going to be this great new web experience, and we're going to do this little mobile thing over here, right? It's switched around. You now see plans coming for mobile is what we're going to focus on, and we'll get the web thing working eventually. And it's a really different paradigm shift than what we had just 5 years ago. So tonight, we're going to talk about the consumer marketplace and what this 4G technology underpinnings have in fact caused into the marketplace. And so it's really going to be a fun, interesting evening, because if you think about 3 or 4 years ago, these kind of topics would have been impossible to have. What we're going to do this evening is let each of the 4 panelists come up and have 5 minutes each to sort of give an overview of their view, what they're doing, and what their company and what they're doing that relates to sort of 4G technology and consumer, right? We'll do that. That'll take us around 20 minutes, and then the rest of the time we're going to do Q&A. I'll start off with some questions that I've been dying to ask these folks, and then we'll let you ask a few questions. If you don't ask questions, then you get me to ask more questions, and then we'll end promptly around 8 o'clock. So I think it's going to be a very fun evening because, as I say, this topic couldn't have been done a while ago. I'm trying to make the slide go to the next one. Oh. No, I push that. Okay. All right, there we go. So our first panelist is Jeff Goldberg. He's manager of mobile client solutions at the Weather Channel. Everybody knows up at 285 and 75, the building, if you drive by and see the Weather Channel up there, they've now got over 100 million customers. They're into everything. Everybody partners with the Weather Channel. And I almost wanted to ask him one day, do you guys like those hurricanes to come? Because then everybody goes to the Weather Channel and see what happened. Like we had that Isaac hit our second home down in Wellington, Florida, 16 inches of rain that we got. What were you doing? We're checking the Weather Channel all the time. But they really have become a fundamental element of, yes, it was used to be news, but now it gets to be rich media. So I'm really interested in what Jeff's going to say. We'll take about 5 minutes for him to share his slides with us. So come on up. Thank you, Jeff. That button or the right one here, one of the two will work. So,
all right.
Thank you for being here.
Thanks for having me. Appreciate it. So yeah, hurricanes are very big. When Isaac hit 2 weeks ago, we haven't had a big hurricane in years, so you just feel the energy in the room. It was sort of like our Super Bowl. Running around like crazy. Not that we like death and destruction, but it is good for ratings and traffic. So basically, what I do at the Weather Channel. Okay. So everyone is probably familiar with the Weather Channel. We've been in the mobile space. Our first mobile site launched in 1999. We have about 30 million unique users a month, and we've really taken a philosophy of being on every screen that matters. So we have apps on Android, iPhone, Kindle Fire, Windows. We still have some BlackBerry stuff, but not as much as we did a few years ago. So really, 4G, why it's important to us, it's all about the consumer. So at the end of the day, our goal is providing the best experience to the consumer. What that looks like now is going to be a lot different than what it looks like a few years from now with 4G and faster speeds. And then the other side of our business is the advertising side. So we're an advertising-driven company. How do we create amazing consumer experiences that drive consumers, drive usage, and then how do we monetize that in the back end? And we'll talk more about that tonight, but a lot of challenges obviously in mobile in terms of how do you monetize. Every day you pick up another article and it seems like doom and gloom, where companies aren't monetizing, mobile's never going to take off in terms of monetization. We feel differently, and we'll talk more about some of those things. So, to start off, and I have a fabulous Weather Channel stylist. Who is that guy right there? And what was a famous date in mobile history? Anyone know that? When he made that famous call. It was April 3rd, 1970. 73, but close enough. So when I was putting this together, obviously we're going to talk about 4G and the growth of mobile and new speeds. You got to start at the beginning, and wouldn't be complete without honoring Marty real quick. Thank you, Marty. Amazing growth in mobile. Every day we see amazing stats. I saw today that there's 6 billion mobile devices. There's 7 billion people in the world. By next year, I believe, or the year after, there'll be more mobile devices than people. Pretty amazing stuff. This is a stat that came out a few months ago that more people have access to have mobile phones and access to safe drinking water. So you could probably debate this in terms of what's wrong with that from a societal perspective, but interesting data just showing how big this is in growth and how it's so pervasive. As I was talking to other people around our company, thinking about 4G, what does 4G mean to us, I was trying to think of an example to really showcase where we'll be at some point, and we don't know what that will be, but if you think about, go back to the 90s, you probably had these discs, you probably signed on to AOL, and this was the web, and it was amazing because we knew nothing else. It was amazing to get sports scores and read stories. And then we go to today where it's a click away. You take out your device, boom, you're on the internet. So very much so how 4G will transpire. Obviously we don't have a crystal ball, but the things we're doing today someday will be different a couple years from now when we have massive data speeds, massive new ways to consume content, and different experiences. Does anyone remember what AOL's peak number was in terms of users? Close. Getting closer. 30 million. So in 2006, they had 30 million users. Pretty amazing. And then, I went around to, partners we work with, people in our company, to get their perspectives on what 4G means to them, what they think is going to happen, their predictions. And, common themes is always connected world of broadband. Again, connected, critical role in mobile advertising. Suddenly, there's no latency in terms of ads show with the content, cool things you can do there. And then this theme of how it empowers developers. Suddenly developers can do new things that they haven't even thought about today. And then again, more video, entertainment moving to the cloud. And this is one interesting point that one of our programmers and developers said, that 4G is really one part of the mobile ecosystem. You still have to think about hardware, software, UI, and native OS features. So it's an important part, but it's really part of the whole equation. And then again, advertisers and publishers, access to data. So all these things really are taking us to this new world of 4G and faster connections, and it's going to be a fun ride to see what happens down the road. That's all I have.
Thank you very much.
And, Jeff, I noticed, just to make my comment, on my iPad and my smartphone, I can now run that map in the local map and have it run a forecast and have it be actually something that doesn't just sit there. It actually does run now, especially if you're in an LTE mode, and that does give you a lot better feel for what's happening. Like when we watched, I think, or continually went around like this, and the rain came up from Miami and just dumped on the Palm Beach area of Florida. So that's very interesting. Our next speaker is a CEO, Ashish Patwa, founder and CEO of Tronton, and the product is called Floozy. So think in terms of, if you've got a clue about what might be happening, think in terms of mobile and trying to put intelligence. We've seen a little bit of this with Siri, trying to be able to look up somebody in your address book. But what if we took it to the next level? Where are we going with intelligence in mobile? And 4G is going to enable us to go way beyond what an example of Siri does. And he gave me a briefing a while back on what he was building. And we invited him here tonight to give you all a little sneak at how these intelligent systems are going to be very useful to people. And Ashish, come on up and take your 5 minutes to give us an overview of what you're doing. Thank you for coming in from Chicago.
So I'll be talking about the intelligent personal assistant software we are building, why we are building that, and what we see in the next few years, what it should be doing, what new capabilities we will be building, and how 4G is going to help us. And the last part will be the money. We see we will be making money from all those capabilities. So these are the market problems right now. There are too many apps. So if you want to book a travel trip, you have to go to many different places to find hotels, book hotels, and then local deals and local search. And so you have to go to 10 different apps and websites to book a trip. So, and the interface is all web-based right now, or the mobile apps. So it's cumbersome to go through the screens. And there is content overload. So if you see, every day we get so many new updates about Facebook and Twitter, and so we create like zillions of gigabytes every month, and it's very tough to find the right information at the right time. So to solve these problems, we are building this product called Floozy. Right now it's on Android and we plan to put it on other platforms. But it's an intelligent personal assistant software. What it is, basically, we want to make sure that people get a free personal assistant. So this virtual assistant should have it should offer all the services that a real human personal assistant can offer. And there are certain characteristics it should have to support that. One of them is conversation interface, so it should be able to understand the voice instructions and also talk back in natural language to create that user experience. Also, it should have intelligence to understand the user from the interactions so that it can understand users' choices, preferences, and it can personalize services for the user because it's very important as a personal assistant software. The third one is smart filters. So there's a lot of information out there. The user really gets benefited if he or she gets the right information at the right time so that they can take informed decisions, and also it should be able to save their time and money. So smart filters and real-time information access, access to the meaningful information, that's also important. And the task delegation. So we just don't want some personal assistant to provide the information, but it should be able to carry out certain tasks for the user. So with those goals, we are building this product called Kruse. You can talk to it to get different things done. We have the first version out. We are building the next version. How this fits into or going to benefit from 4G. So what we see as the next step. Right now, the software actually uses a huge mashup of different interfaces, data and service interfaces. And now there is some intelligence on the device side. There is most of the intelligence reside in the cloud. So there is intelligence on the edge. There is cloud. And with the next few versions in the future, we see some more capabilities joining, or the resources joining in the mobile space, like sensors, that will be creating a lot of traffic and useful traffic for intelligent assistants to analyze data and then and help users. So, for example, some sensors getting vitals from our body, also getting data from our surroundings, our environment, process that data to create meaningful information and provide useful information to the user. Now, for all that, you need a lot of you create a lot of traffic back to the server, and for that, we think 4G can be really helpful. Where is the money? Money will be on how intelligently this assistant software, these agents, process the information and create the relevant information for the user. So just transmitting the information, that's fine, but at the same time, it should have the analytics, the big data analytics to make the use of that information real time and process it as fast as possible and get back to the user. So for all that, we think 4G will be really helpful for the users, provide more functionalities as well as to create more business for the softwares. So thank you.
Our next, we're going to take an example. This company Razorfish is interesting because it has clients that are out implementing these 4G oriented solutions. Harald Kruse is going to come up and talk about some of their clients and how they're implementing things in the 4G environment. Harald, thank you for flying in, also for being here with us this evening.
Thanks for that introduction, Gerry. How do I do this? So what I wanted to do, a little bit of background quickly, is Razorfish really, the stated purpose of Razorfish is to create experiences that build businesses. So in light of that, and to that end, what I would like to discuss today is a little bit more about how mobile experiences are changing, and especially with the increased connectivity speeds and the increased processing speeds in today's smartphones and tablets. I'm going to be staying a little bit away from our actual clients and just talk to you a little bit about what I see on the cutting edge and how the experiences are already in market, but it's just really the start of what we're seeing. So 2 factors that I see as critical in increasing that engagement is really the video capabilities and location-based services, or location services. So in video in particular, we've seen this in digital before, where video has higher click-through rates, they're higher time on page. We see that increased engagement, and that's paramount to creating a very good mobile experience. But of course, there's a bandwidth associated with it, which is difficult in previous wireless connections, but is doing much better now. For location services, again, this is another factor that we've seen everything from the Weather Channel and through mobile apps of being able to serve much more relevant content based on where the user actually is really helps to drive engagement. And we've seen that through advertising, but it's also true for anywhere else. So the 2 topics that I'd like to address tonight both involve those 2, and that's augmented reality and location-based services. And I'm just going to highlight a quick example of each of those. So for augmented reality, I'm not sure how many people in the room have seen the September issue of GQ magazine. Maybe I can get a show of hands really quick. A couple here and there. Of course. So what GQ did for the September issue is create an entire magazine where almost every page of it has some form of augmented reality embedded in it. So a free app to download through the either Google Play or the iTunes Store. But everything from the front cover through all the advertisements had some extra experience that you could have for free again through your mobile phone. So in these 2 examples on the right-hand side, it's actually just a picture of Tim Tebow, one of the backup quarterback for New York Jets. Normally it would just be a picture. You scroll over and you actually see the video conference where he is telling the world how excited he is to be a New York Jet. And on the right-hand side over there is actually one of the advertisements, a quick shot of one of the advertisements, where I believe that's a Dunhill ad, if I'm not mistaken. But again, it brings video right into the print module there. And there's a few other advertisers that have used this in different ways, and I think Hilton might have created their own experience specifically for this advertisement. But it really opens the door to a situation where, if I'm really interested in, the Mercedes-Benz CLS, for instance, and I see that ad and I want to see what other, what the horsepower is of that particular model they're showing, I can just point my viewfinder from my phone over that and see all the options and features, colors, the trim, and so forth that you just can't show in a typical print advertisement. And it also has that capability of, hey, just click it and go directly to the dealer. And some of the advertisements had such interfaces with, just click to buy or go to our store and go and shop that fashion that you're seeing right there. So a really deep experience all of a sudden from a formerly pretty plain print magazine. But it's interesting because it opens up a whole new problem of this medium that formerly required no bandwidth whatsoever, and all of a sudden now has an on-demand streaming service associated directly to it. So it's a new capability, but it's really an interesting new service. Location-based is similar. Now, I think we've all used our phones to navigate around, whether it be around the city or around for driving, and frankly, I've become quite dependent on these directions by now. Otherwise, I never would have done my way here, actually. There's companies that are taking this much further now, too. One of them is this company, Meridian, which is actually showing in-store maps for you to be able to find your way around, whether it be a store, a casino, or a museum. So you can see maybe that's a little small, but that picture of the Tyrannosaurus Rex, there's actually an app around the American Natural History Museum in New York that you can download, and it'll give you turn-by-turn directions, and then layer in on top of that explanations for, hey, what is it that I'm actually looking at? So some of it is in pictures, but you can imagine the possibilities here of video interviews with the foremost experts explaining exactly how they found this or what the whether this is the oldest or middle of the range dinosaur or whatever it might be. But really interesting capability and opens the door to a whole new world, especially in the retail world where you can actually market directly aisle by aisle or conceivably even product by product. But again, it's one of those where in a museum you would have been walking around with just a simple directional map, and all of a sudden you have a much different engagement and a much different experience while you're at that museum. But it requires that very quick page turning bandwidth. So in light of time, I decided to keep it short and just keep it two examples. But I wanted to point out that this is really just the beginning. This is just something that we've started to see, but it's really going to increase from here. These are just kind of the leading lights in our progress towards having mobile be a really great experience. But it's not possible without the investment from the carriers in the 4G LTE networks. Thanks.
Thank you.
Our fourth panelist, Craig Kirkland, Mobile Product Director from CNN. All of us have interacted, of course, a lot with the news concept of CNN and what it's doing relative to mobile. Craig's going to give us an indication of that. I'll let Craig know that we're now part of your family. He doesn't know what I'm going to say right now, but it's just a family reference. My son just accepted head of digital for Sports Illustrated, so he's part of the Time Warner family in the corporate world. And Craig, come up, and I'm excited to hear about what you're going to say from a CNN perspective. So thanks for being here.
I'll show you the secret handshake. So thanks. When I think about 4G, I wanted to take a little different perspective. So picking up something that Jeff had talked about and actually just mentioned, I thought of a couple quotes I thought were pretty appropriate for 4G today. And one is, you can read it, to overestimate the effect of technology in the short run, underestimate in the long run. So I think that's appropriate to where 4G is today. And then, of course, the way it's marketed today, America's all about speed, hot, nasty, badass speed. Eleanor Roosevelt, Ricky Bobby, not sure who actually made that quote, but today, the marketing is all about the LG or the LTE and the speed at which we go. But I think there's a lot more to it, and what I'd like to just talk about is how 4G impacts the ecosystem from the consumer to the carrier to advertisers and other areas. So here's the areas I think are impacted by 4G today. So first, the consumer, and it always starts with the consumer. We build products at CNN, I'm sure others have relatively the same approach. We start with the consumer at the forefront, and we think about choice, control, and convenience. These kind of three overriding factors of how we build products. And so I think 4G today provides a much better consumer experience, or convenience, excuse me, but I'm not certain yet it's really delivered on the other choice and control. And so if you think about a consumer, it's great for maps and other things because it downloads much faster. You're not waiting to figure out if you turn left or right. But I don't know. Like by show of hands, how many of you guys today have checked news or weather or sports on your mobile devices? Everyone does. How many here have checked the speed of your mobile device today? How many of you do not work at a carrier? Okay. So it's not a major factor yet, and so I think consumers always want faster products and services, and so I think 4G will deliver that, but I don't know what speed really matters. Consumers always want something bigger, better, and faster, and so it's kind of always going to be a major factor in how we think about consumers. Next, from an operator perspective, I used to work as an operator, recovering member of an operator, and started in engineering. And I can say that they're really focused on the consumer today, and it's great because the way they've chosen to market product, which is about speed and coverage, forces every carrier to continue to build out their networks bigger and faster. And so that's great for consumers. It's rough for carriers and their costs and their capital expenditures, but it's really good for consumers. And I think it will pay off more for carriers ultimately in the short run for consumers, but long term, I really believe like the machine-to-machine experiences that 4G LTE can deliver to refrigerators or wherever it might be might also help really make the carrier investment pay off in a way that we haven't really realized yet. Next, for developers, I think I work with a lot of developers. We have our own. We talk to a lot, and I've never met a developer yet that said something along the lines of, "I'd love to build that feature product, but I'm not going to do it yet because I don't think the network's fast enough." So what they do is they build it, and then what happens is consumers today adjust their consumption pattern to match the product. So if you think about Netflix or other things, those consumers probably go to a Wi-Fi connection today to download movies or watch movies. But I think ultimately, when 4G becomes bigger, then those decisions, like those sacrifices consumers make today, will not have to happen anymore. And there's some things with FaceTime and operators and kind of neutrality, and some of those issues will start to go away as well as 4G becomes more pervasive. Pricing, something we care about a lot since we offer free products and rely on advertising. I think 4G has brought about some new philosophy in pricing. When I worked at a carrier, we actually had to give away text messaging to start with. I mean, imagine getting a plan where you say, you know what, you're gonna get 50 free text messages. And now where you pay anywhere from $20 to $25 a month for some bundle to get text messaging. So I think between caps and slowdowns and new toll-free data models, I think their 4G will have some impact on pricing approaches for consumers and carriers to experiment with different models. And instead of just giving everything away for free or at unlimited pricing, I think there'll be tiers of service. There'll be maybe off-peak hours to get back to old mobile days. And so I think this area in particular will have a lot of evolving business models and practices, and not certain where that's going to end. And then lastly, with advertisers, I think, as someone already noted, huge opportunity for advertisers. I think the opportunity to deliver richer, fuller experiences on video in particular, but in other ways, really is an exciting opportunity. So I know in talking to our advertisers, they're excited about what 4G can deliver, and we think that's great for the mobile ecosystem as well as for our bottom line.
Thank you. So we've had some good comments by our panelists. I want you all to start thinking about what are the critical questions that you think are in the world of 4G and consumer that you would want to add. There we are. And I'll ask a few questions, and I'll lead it out to you all in the industry. When I was introduced, it was mentioned about my Inside Mobile column. I do send it out weekly. If any of you want it that don't have it, just give me your card and write newsletter on it, or just tell me to add you to the newsletter list, and I'll be glad to do that. From a start-off standpoint, I want to ask Harald on Razorfish, where are we likely to see significant revenue from mobile advertising? It seems like I remember when it was the year of the land, and then LAN happened. Was it going to be mobile? Were we really ever going to have smartphones that'll be useful? And now all the talks about advertising, what do you see actually happening where mobile and advertising make sense and we can actually document large numbers of revenue and also pricing that isn't 1,000th of what it is on the web or something? So give me your view on that.
Sure, absolutely. Definitely agree. It's been a long time coming, but don't forget that my first exposure to mobile was in 2006 when I was working at ABC News, and mobile advertising was really just used as an added value. So we've really come from the absolute zero to a point where now there are clients who are spending millions of dollars every year in mobile advertising. So there's definitely been an upward projection. It's been a little bit of a slow rise, but as we're getting better at figuring out the relevance and how to communicate to customers over this kind of new medium, the revenues are starting to increase. I mean, even just this year, I'd say probably the last 12 months or so, there's been an increase in, you can see like those click-to-call banners or in the search pages, click-to-call or click-to-download. And that just shows that there's a much greater appreciation for the relevance of how people are actually looking for things on the phone, what they want to do with it. And it involves the native capability of making a phone call or finding something quickly through the phone. In addition to that, we obviously see some rich media ads that are actually doing some really great creative work that are starting to get those higher CPMs like you're talking about. We're not quite at web levels now, and sell-through rate at this point is still rather low in comparison to the desktop web. But there's definitely a progression, an upward trajectory, and I think it's going to continue on and gain speed as we go.
If you're looking out 5 years from now, do you think most of the revenue is going to be web or app-based, or how do you think it'll be split?
That's an interesting question. My personal view on it is that there's going to be a lot more web traction. Right now, the apps dominate. Time spent, but I think mobile web is starting to gain more and more traction with HTML5, and I think you'll see that apps aren't always the answer, and sometimes mobile web actually works a lot better for a company's needs.
Sure.
And I think the revenues will pan out that way.
Yeah, and Jeff, I think you had some comments on being that you mentioned earlier Weather Channel advertising based, and I do want to also get credit to you on this.
A few comments. So we live and breathe this every day. So last year our traffic on mobile surpassed web. That was a monumental moment for us. And as we think about it, as we talk to advertisers, as we try to figure out how to really monetize mobile, we've created this concept, this internal concept of what's really hurting mobile right now is this paradox of choice, where you have 100 million consumers, they have computers, high-def displays in their pockets, but advertisers really have too many choices, and it's not easy for them to go out there and buy mobile. It's getting easier. People are working to make it easier. So we've identified 5 things. If we can band together as an industry and really figure out these 5 things, we'd be in great shape. So the first one really is creativity. So as everyone knows, does anyone like banners in here? Does anyone click on banners? So it's a huge problem on mobile where we sort of have taken the online model and transported it to mobile. Banners are not the way to go. They're intrusive. The screen's small. They don't provide an interactive experience. How do we go beyond banners? How do we create something new, something engaging that really puts mobile front and center? We're working on some new concepts that get rid of the banner and create more of an integrated experience. So imagine it's a nice sunny day. Nike is sponsoring a forecast, and you have a picture of a runner with a very subtle Nike logo. So Nike's part of the app. It's not intrusive. And it's giving that branding, that magazine, that TV type experience. So creativity is very important. Rich media, measurement, ROI is another big issue. We have to do a better job as an industry proving ROI that this stuff works. There's still that perception out there that you can't measure it, you can't do all the tracking you can do online. So we're partnering with a lot of big agencies and players like MMA. Let's do studies, let's prove this works. Targeting is another big issue. Harald talked about location-based. We're doing a lot of location-based targeting, but a big problem with mobile is you have millions and billions of impressions. I don't want to just hit everybody. I want to hit a business traveler. How do we provide solutions for that? And then the other 2 things are standardization. How do we band together as an industry to create standard formats, standard experiences, and then evangelize? We need to go out there, and when we have these successes and these studies and great results, really tell clients and advertisers about it. So that's what we're trying to figure out from our side.
Great. And you're advertising, a lot of advertising based. What do you see in mobile? And then my question that I told you I wanted to ask was to talk about the issue of personalization, but maybe first some comments on advertising in mobile?
Sure. I think it starts in your perspective where you're coming from. Being a TV and web company, mobile is the newest kid in the block, and so I think the opportunity for mobile is strong in revenue. 5 years from now, I don't know if 50% revenue for mobile or 60 or 20, but I do know that I think there'll be a very integrated experience across those platforms, and that advertisers will probably move toward a more of an integrated model where mobile and online and TV or other platforms are part of their buy versus I think today mobile could be considered like a throwaway or add-in option in some cases. And there's lots of companies today mobile only that are making lots of money, very successful. And so I think if you started up in this industry now and you're making money, the sky's the limit, because I think there's lots of opportunity as well for just mobile-only revenue opportunities that exist, principally in games, but certainly in other areas as well. And then personalization. I mean, obviously, with news content, we think personalization is critically important to the overall consumer experience. CNN acquired a company, Zeit, last year, actually, that specializes in personalization, and so I think we view that obviously strategically as critically important. So if we can deliver the right news on the right device at the right time, we know we'll have a much more engaged consumer than just delivering the same news everybody blasted across platforms. So we think personalization is critically important as our success, and a lot of other mobile folks are moving in the same direction. But I think a personalized experience, a more engaged experience, tie that with some personalized advertising, and you really have a great overall mobile experience that is good for consumers and good for advertisers as well.
Thank you for that. Ashish, get you to comment a bit from your intelligence, working on personalized assistant intelligence. Where do you make money at that? How does the intelligence of what you're doing, let's say, create value that you can then monetize?
Well, right now we partner with 48 companies to stream in information, that is content and services. So weather information and different kinds of news stories and local search, and for all that we partner with different companies, and we are affiliates. So people use the service through Floozy, they get paid, these companies get paid, and we get a buy of it. So affiliation revenue is part of it. We have the advertising model and premium features, so the other two things we consider as part of our revenue model.
Okay. I wanted to always ask the Weather Channel was from a hyper localization issue. Do you have now, or do you expect? I mean, I use the Weather Channel app often, but that it becomes more of symbiotic system to you in the sense that as weather changes, it interacts with you from a local, because I might literally be here in North Atlanta and there's a storm in South Atlanta. People down there really need to know about it, but maybe I don't, and I can go out for a run or go outside and do an exercise or something where somebody in South Atlanta, who's only 30, 40 miles away, really needs to be notified that there's a problem.
Yeah, so we have technology today called TruePoint. We haven't done a great job of marketing what it is, but basically we can give you the forecast for your exact address, so we can get down to that level. We can really hone in and provide that level of accuracy and forecasting. We've been doing a lot of consumer usability testing, talking to a lot of consumers, and the trend really is consumers want weather that's relevant to them, so really they want a one-to-one forecast. So if you're a runner, how do we provide you the forecast beyond just, it's going to be hot today, and here's your hourly forecast. What's the best time to run? How do we provide forecasts that really play into your lifestyle? So we're really moving into that. I'm a golfer, I'm playing today, what do I need to know for my golf game? I'm walking my dog, what's the best 15 minutes to walk my dog today? So with more technology, we'll get closer and closer to that concept of one-to-one forecast. We're talking about this concept of start, stop, range. So we have technology today to tell you, hey, it's going to start raining in 10 minutes and it's going to stop in 30 minutes. So really valuable information if you're planning a party or outside doing something. So really what we're trying to figure out now is we have a lot of this technology, but how do we make it relevant so it goes beyond just providing you data? How do we make it so the average person can consume it and really live with it and utilize it?
Great. We've got about 5-6 minutes left. I want to let anybody ask a question in the audience. Just identify yourself and ask a question. I'll try to repeat it as best I can, and then we'll get into wrap up. Back here first, and then think about raising your hand in a minute.
Hi, my name is Evan Glenn. I'm with Ericsson, and my question is, have you given thought to how consumer apps, or how can you leverage the voice over LTE or rich communications? How can consumer apps bring value to users, user experience, leveraging voice over LTE?
Okay. So the question concerns how to leverage voice over LTE instead of using the cellular channel for voice, being able to use like a Skype would use, is being able to get a voice over the data traffic. Do you see that, particularly the question of voice over LTE being useful to your delivery of value in the consumer space, either for your own company or do you think in the industry? Who would like to take that? Okay, Harold?
Yeah, I guess I will. I do think that there is a potential of use for that kind of application for perhaps international calls or a quick, perhaps targeted into certain demographics. I'm not sure that it's going to be too popular with some of the carriers. I'm not sure how that would play out. So while I think it's an interesting idea, I'm just not sure about its viability.
Yeah, I think it will be quite pervasive in a few years from now. Let's see. Let's start on the far end, go here, and then there. Okay?
Roger Mahler, do you have any lessons learned that you could provide as you've moved from the traditional web environment to the mobile problem you had?
That's a great
and
question.
What you see developers who are coming out of an environment where I'm always wired and I've got a gig behind me, their challenges as you move into this rather disconnected world.
Sure. So the question is a great one. If you've been coming out of the web world, what are the lessons learned? As what do you really need to be mindful of as you try to move into the mobile space?
I'll take a stab at that.
Okay, great.
You know, we talk about digital apples and digital applesauce a lot. So a mistake a lot of companies make is to take the web experience and just jam it on a mobile phone. It's got the same thing. So that's the applesauce, right? And so mobile's about apples, and so it could be related. Think of strawberry or banana split. It's kind of all related. Different flavors in there, right? You got strawberry, you have vanilla, you have chocolate, but they're all kind of related. And mobile's that way too. I think it's a mistake to have a same web experience on mobile. Mobile needs to be treated unique platform, but it can't be disconnected from your other experiences. And so I think if I give one advice to any company starting out mobile perspective is that start there first. Think of the screen size, think of the experiences, and don't try to make things work across platform if they're not meant to.
Okay. I want to get these last two because we only have 3 minutes left. I'll also comment for everybody, when you realize if you're coming out of the web, you first have to make it optimized for your mobile users because the screen size is different, which isn't even an app. It's just how does the web work well on a mobile device. And then migrating, if you really justify building an app to give a really great user experience on a local basis. So let's have your question and the last one here. We've got it limited to 1 minute each here.
Real quickly, as Craig mentioned, the more that 4G comes out of their higher speeds, the more data we consume as consumers. If you take the whole BYOD device, bring your own device to work, that was a big thing coming up with the corporations. What we're seeing is some of our CTOs and our large corporations we work with are starting to pull their hair out now because of the faster speeds. and because their employees are bringing these devices, right, and they can't lock them down. So they're increasing all the data consumption they're getting, and they're actually spending more money supporting the BYODs had they not gone with something like a BlackBerry. So flipping this, continuing on, BlackBerry had the wonderful technology, of course, to compress the data they consume, right? Do you see a resurgence in BlackBerry, which are now under 10%, because of that problem? Or what else do you think is going to happen with the consumption of data by employees in the companies, because now we have all this wonderful technology?
Okay, so it's really how are we going to utilize this, extend the BYOD, bring your own device into the organization, and to leverage access to the mobile technology. So one of you needs to answer it, and we keep it to a minute. Who wants to take it? I'll ask Harald.
I think the data and the speed, I think the more concern for the enterprises are the security, some other than the data itself or the volume of the data. So I think the BYOD, and the main problem is the security standards. I mean, they set some standards and it's very difficult to put some new device on it. So that's more challenge than actually the employees using the data.
Okay, and we have one final question here, is that right?
Yes.
And really quick, 30 seconds.
Really quick. So it'll be a question to all four of you, but as quick as you can. Putting aside technology, like video and VoIP, okay, or VoLTE, what do you see are the top applications, whether they're web-based or whether they're embedded applications that can take advantage of the speeds that true 4G LTEs will address?
Okay, top application. Harald, you work in the app development space, so could you give a quick answer to that? Where you think the biggest?
What do you mean by app exactly? I'm sure.
Yeah,
I'm not sure.
What type of applications, regardless of whether they're embedded or whether they're web-based, what type of mobile apps are going to best leverage? What are the next ones, the next killer apps that are coming out?
Yeah, I mean, I would think that anything that leverages that speed, and for the current kind of environment, that's mostly video and kind of that entire streaming of media that I see right now.
Yeah, I mean, for us, obviously, it's data and reimagining. Right now, it's static. How do you create whole new experiences? Again, video too.
I mean, addition to that, I'd say would also be gaming. So the kind of the back and forth role player, interactive gaming where you're actually playing with other people at the same time, or across the world. I think that's probably the main reason.
The only thing I'd add differently is productivity apps or solutions that allow workers, whether in the field or not, to work more faster with different, more powerful platforms or programs.
I think also an area you might want to remember is this sort of new buzzword called solo-mo, right? Social, location, and mobile. And if you integrate that together, you're really sort of addressing what consumers are really interested in. Socially, what's important, but how is it local, and how do I access it on my mobile? Meryl, let's get you back up here. I want to ask you all to give a round of applause to these people for contributing.
Thank you very much, Gerry and panelists. Great night tonight. Do want to call out one more time our tonight's sponsor was IBM, so we do thank them very much for their support. And again, our annual sponsors, again, I always want to call them out. We do appreciate that. John, would you come up and help me? We would like to give, I know you just gave a round of applause, we'd like to do it one more time. We do have a little lovely party gift for our panelists tonight. Since John was the organizer, I'd like to have him help hand those out. To remember your night at the Wireless Technology Forum. So if you could help me one more time with a round of applause.